Have you ever noticed how life after 80 can look like standing on the edge of a cliff? One year, someone is laughing at family dinners, walking around the block, telling the same old stories you've heard 1,000 times. And then suddenly, not long after their 81st birthday, everything starts to slide. Their energy goes. Their memory feels softer around the edges. One small health scare seems to change everything. From the outside, it almost looks like there's an invisible age limit built into the human body, a line you cross where the odds start turning against you. But the real story is stranger than that. It's not one big cause. It's a stack of hidden forces that quietly pile up over decades and finally show their full weight after 81. Some of those forces are biological, some are emotional, and some are the result of how our modern world treats older people, often without even noticing. Today, we're going to unpack 6 surprising reasons why so many lives become fragile after 81 and what can be done about them. Some of these reasons are uncomfortable to talk about. Some challenge the way families, doctors, and entire systems handle old age. But understanding them can mean the difference between a final chapter that is rushed and painful and one that still has light, laughter, and meaning. Stay with me, because as we go through each reason, you may recognize someone you love. You might even see a possible future version of yourself. And the choices you make now can quietly rewrite that future. Reason 1. The purpose crash after 81. One of the biggest, most invisible reasons people fade fast after 81 is something you can't measure in a blood test: purpose. For decades, life is full of built-in reasons to get out of bed: work, raising kids, paying bills, showing up for people who rely on you. Even when it's stressful, there's a clear sense of "I'm needed." But as people move into their late 70s and early 80s, those roles shrink. Retirement cuts out daily structure. Children and grandchildren build lives of their own. Friends move, get sick, or pass away. The calendar that used to be packed with obligations quietly empties out. At first, that can feel like freedom. No meetings, no deadlines, no alarm clock. But over time, many older adults wake up to a heavy question: what am I actually for now? Researchers have been digging into that feeling. They found that having a strong sense of purpose, some kind of ongoing mission, big or small, is linked to living longer and staying mentally sharper, even in late life. Older adults with a clear sense of purpose aren't just happier. They have a lower risk of cognitive decline, heart problems, and death than those who feel like they're simply waiting around. But here's the tricky part. Purpose doesn't always vanish in a dramatic moment. It often erodes quietly. Imagine an 82-year-old woman who used to organize a weekly church group. For years, planning those meetups, calling people, making sure everyone had a ride. That was her heartbeat. Then attendance drops. People move. The group closes. Nobody calls her, our organizer, anymore. She doesn't lose a job on paper, but she loses a job in her soul. Or picture an 83-year-old man who used to fix things for neighbors. He shoveled driveways, repaired door handles, changed light bulbs. One winter, his knees hurt a little more. Someone tells him, "Sit down, don't worry about it, you've done enough." It's meant kindly, but slowly the requests stop. The toolbox gets dusty. So does his sense of usefulness. Without that feeling of being needed, mornings feel heavier. Meals become less interesting. The brain gets less stimulation. Even the body responds. People who feel they have no purpose tend to be less active, less socially engaged, and more vulnerable to illness. Over time, that shows up in the statistics. There's a quiet controversy here too. Society sells a dream of retirement as endless leisure. Sit by the pool, watch TV, do nothing. You've earned it. But for many people, especially after 81, that dream slowly turns into a trap. Doing nothing doesn't just feel empty. It can literally shorten life. The hopeful side is this: purpose after 81 doesn't have to look like a full-time job or saving the world. It can be as simple as calling one grandchild every Sunday, checking on a neighbor down the hall, caring for a pet or a garden, volunteering a couple of hours at a local charity or community center. The key is that someone or something genuinely needs them, and they know it. When that happens, appetite returns, sleep improves, they move more, they laugh more, the light in their eyes comes back. So when you see an older person who seems to be slowing down after 81, don't just ask what's wrong with their body. Ask what happened to their mission. Because sometimes the fastest way to help their health is to give them back a reason to matter. And that leads straight into the second hidden reason, where the body shows just how fragile life can become when those reserves, physical and emotional, are already low. Reason 2. One small health scare becomes a downhill spiral. In your 30s or 40s, you can catch a bad flu, sprain an ankle, or have minor surgery and bounce back in a few weeks. In your early 80s, that same event can quietly redraw the rest of your life. By the time someone reaches 81, the body has often carried decades of wear and tear. Many older adults have not just one diagnosis, but several: diabetes, high blood pressure, heart issues, arthritis, maybe some breathing problems too. Doctors call that multimorbidity, multiple chronic conditions at once, and it becomes increasingly common after 80. On top of that, there's something called frailty. It's not just being weak. Frailty is a measurable state where the body has less ability to handle stress. Frail older adults lose strength faster, recover slower, and are more likely to have big problems after even small challenges. Studies show that the percentage of people who are frail jumps sharply after 80, and frailty is tightly linked to higher risk of disability, hospitalization, and death. So what happens when a frail, 81-year-old body gets hit with something that would be a mere inconvenience at 50? Maybe it's a fall in the bathroom. The hip isn't broken, but the fear is real. The person starts avoiding walking just in case. Less walking leads to weaker muscles. Weaker muscles make another fall more likely. Days that used to include errands, hobbies, and visits shrink down to a chair and a remote. Or maybe it's a minor infection, a urinary tract infection, a bout of pneumonia that requires a short hospital stay. In the hospital, sleep gets disrupted, routines disappear, and new medications are added. Many older adults experience confusion or agitation in unfamiliar hospital environments, what doctors call delirium. Even after the infection clears, that mental fog can stick around for weeks or months. Families then see a dramatic change and say, they never really came back from that. There's controversy here too. Some families feel their loved one is pushed into procedures and tests that are too aggressive for someone in their mid-80s. Others feel doctors don't do enough because of their age, quietly assuming that it's not worth it to treat very old patients as intensely as younger ones. That tension between overtreatment and undertreatment is a real issue in modern healthcare, and it's often driven by age bias instead of individual needs. Underneath the debate is one hard truth. After 81, the margin for error shrinks. A week in bed can steal months of strength. A small loss of confidence can erase years of independence. That's why things like fall-proofing the home, staying physically active, and getting early treatment for minor illnesses matter extra at this age. They aren't just about this week. They're about preventing a spiral that may be very hard to reverse. And when you combine this physical vulnerability with the next factor, loneliness that attacks like a slow-burning disease, the risk grows even faster. Reason 3. loneliness that hits like a disease. When you imagine a serious health risk, you probably think of things like smoking, obesity, or high blood pressure. What most people don't realize is that long-term social isolation can be just as dangerous, especially for people over 80. Over the last few years, loneliness has exploded into the spotlight as a global health concern. Health authorities and researchers are now warning that chronic loneliness and social isolation raise the risk of early death as much as smoking about 15 cigarettes a day. They're linked to higher rates of heart disease, stroke, dementia, depression, anxiety, and overall mortality. For older adults, especially those over 81, it's dangerously easy to slip into isolation. A spouse passes away. A close friend moves to a care home. Driving becomes scary at night. Hearing problems make conversations in noisy places feel frustrating instead of fun. And suddenly, without anyone choosing it, the outside world gets very far away. At first, it might not look like a big deal. Grandma just likes staying home. He's always been a bit quiet. But inside the body, something serious is happening. Recent research has shown that loneliness and isolation are linked to changes in the levels of certain proteins in the blood, proteins involved in inflammation and immune responses. These changes are associated with higher risks of heart problems, diabetes, stroke, and death. It's not just a mood issue. It's biology. Now imagine an 84-year-old widower. For most of his life, he was the funny one at family gatherings, the guy who had a story for everything. After his wife dies and his last sibling moves away, the house grows quiet. Days go by with no visitors. Phone calls slow down. He still eats, but sometimes it's just crackers or cereal because cooking for one isn't worth it. He watches TV not because he loves it, but because it fills the silence. He starts forgetting appointments, not because his memory is suddenly broken, but because his brain isn't being challenged by real conversations and real plans. Studies have found that older adults who stay socially active, who meet friends, join groups, or volunteer, can reduce their risk of dementia by a large margin and even delay its onset by several years. One study found that active social lives were linked to a significantly lower risk of developing dementia or mild cognitive impairment. Here's the controversial part. We often treat loneliness as a sad, but normal, part of aging. That's like saying, yeah, Grandpa's smoking a pack a day, but that's just how it is at his age. If we heard that, we'd step in. We'd talk to him. We'd look for help. Yet with loneliness, we shrug. The truth is, simple acts, regular calls, visits, group activities, community centers, faith gatherings, even online meetups for tech-savvy seniors, can literally extend life. They can protect the brain, reduce inflammation, and keep older adults sharper and more motivated. So when you see someone over 81 spending day after day alone, don't assume they're fine with it. Isolation might be quietly doing more damage than any one disease, and stacking on top of all the other risks we've talked about so far. And when you add modern medicine into the mix, there's another twist. The very pills meant to help can sometimes make things worse. Reason 4. Medication overload quietly dragging people down. By the time many people reach their 80s, their pill organizers look like tiny pharmacies. One for blood pressure, one for cholesterol, one for sleep, one for pain, something for the stomach, something for the nerves, and maybe another pill to fix the side effects from the first pill. Doctors have a word for this: polypharmacy. It usually means taking 5 or more medications regularly. In older adults, especially those over 80, it's extremely common and strongly tied to falls, confusion, hospitalizations, and higher risk of death. On paper, each prescription might be perfectly reasonable. In reality, the combination can be a mess. The aging body processes drugs differently. The liver and kidneys, which help clear medications, often work more slowly. That means the same dose that was fine at 70 can become risky at 82. Add multiple drugs that affect the brain, blood pressure, or balance, and the results can be brutal. Dizziness, foggy thinking, mood swings, falls, and even symptoms that look like dementia. Picture an 85-year-old man who suddenly seems not himself. He's unsteady, sleepy during the day, irritable, and forgetful. Family members whisper, "Maybe this is the start of Alzheimer's." But then a pharmacist reviews his list and finds something else. Overlapping medications that all cause drowsiness and confusion. After his doctor slowly adjusts and removes a few of them, the fog lifts. He's not magically 40 again, but he's clear, awake, and more like the person his family remembers. Here's where controversy comes in. Some experts argue that our healthcare system is great at adding medications and terrible at subtracting them. Specialists often focus on their own piece of the puzzle, cardiology, neurology, pain, sleep, without always seeing the full list. That's how older adults end up taking a dozen pills, prescribed by different doctors who may never have spoken to each other. At the same time, many older patients feel nervous about questioning their prescriptions. They don't want to seem ungrateful or difficult, so they quietly keep swallowing pills that make their days smaller and more confusing. But here's the hopeful part. Medication overload is one of the most fixable problems on this list. Regular medication checkups with a doctor or pharmacist, where every drug is reviewed and unnecessary or harmful combinations are identified, can dramatically improve how someone feels. Sometimes, reducing the number of medicines or adjusting doses is enough to restore energy, balance, and mental clarity. The goal shifts from treat every little symptom to protect quality of life, independence, and clear thinking. Of course, medications alone aren't the only hidden load older adults carry. There's another heavy burden many people don't see. Older caregivers who are quietly burning themselves out to take care of someone else. Reason 5. The hidden burden of caregiver stress. When you picture a caregiver, you might think of a middle-aged adult looking after an aging parent. But there's a whole other group people rarely talk about. Caregivers in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s caring for a spouse, a sibling, or an adult child. On the outside, they're praised as devoted, loyal, amazing for their age. On the inside, many of them are exhausted, anxious, and quietly falling apart. Caregiver stress isn't just an emotional issue. Studies show that older caregivers under heavy strain have higher risks of depression, high blood pressure, weakened immunity, and even a higher chance of dying earlier than their peers who aren't caregiving under similar stress. Imagine an 84-year-old woman caring for her husband after a stroke. She helps him in and out of bed, manages his medications, drives to appointments, cooks, cleans, and sleeps lightly because she's afraid he might fall if he tries to get up alone. At first, she says, "I can handle it. We promised to care for each other." Months go by. She cancels her own checkups because it feels selfish to leave him. She starts waking up tired. Her back hurts from lifting. She snaps more easily, then feels guilty. Friends tell her to take care of yourself, but nobody actually steps in to give her a break. By the time family notices something is wrong, she's lost weight, forgotten parts of her own medication routine, and looks 10 years older. She has become a second patient. The controversial part? Our systems often depend on this invisible army of older caregivers, and then completely fail to support them. Health professionals may focus almost entirely on the person who is sick, barely checking in on the spouse who's doing all the daily work. Families may assume the healthier elder is coping because they don't complain. Many older caregivers feel they would be judged or misunderstood if they say, "I can't keep doing this alone." But the truth is, an overwhelmed caregiver is not just suffering silently. Their stress can directly affect the health and stability of the person they're caring for too. If the caregiver collapses, everything collapses. The hopeful turn here is that even small bits of support can change the story. Respite care, someone stepping in for a few hours or days so the caregiver can rest. Sharing responsibilities among family members instead of loading everything onto one older spouse. Support groups, counseling, or community programs that give caregivers a place to be honest and heard. For someone over 81 who is still caregiving, learning to say, "I need help," is not weakness. It's a survival skill for them and for their loved one. And that leads us to the final, deep layer under all of this: the slow erosion of resilience, and the question of what makes some people keep fighting while others quietly let go. Reason 6. The slow erosion of resilience. Resilience is one of those words that sounds soft, but it might be the hardest force on this entire list. It's that inner ability to take a hit, adapt, and keep going. In childhood and middle age, resilience gets tested all the time. People lose jobs, relationships, opportunities. They get sick, recover, reinvent themselves. Every time they bounce back, that muscle of resilience grows a little stronger. But after a certain point, especially into the 80s, the hits come closer together, and the chances to recover fully get smaller. A spouse of 50 or 60 years dies. Vision and hearing fade. Driving becomes dangerous. Friends get sick. Independence shrinks as other people start making more decisions for your own good. Homes are downsized. Possessions are given away. The world someone knew slowly dissolves beneath their feet. Researchers use tools like frailty indices to measure how many health and social deficits a person has accumulated. Things like chronic illnesses, mobility problems, living conditions, and more. As those deficits stack up, the risk of death rises sharply, especially after 80. But underneath those numbers is something more human. Every new loss chips away at the will to fight the next battle. Think of an 86-year-old man who has always been fiercely independent. He survives a heart scare. Then a year later, his best friend passes away. Then his eyesight worsens, and he has to give up driving. Then he falls and breaks a bone. None of those events alone are impossible to recover from. But together, they act like waves hitting the same shoreline again and again. At some point, he may quietly think, "I'm tired. I'm done trying." Interestingly, research also shows the opposite side. Older adults who hold on to a sense of purpose, hope, and psychological well-being have lower risks of dementia and death. A strong sense of purpose is linked to better brain resilience, fewer cognitive problems, and better overall health, even after controlling for things like education and genetics. So resilience isn't just a personality trait. It's something that interacts with the body. When people feel there's still something to live for, give to, enjoy, and experience, their body responds. They move more. They eat better. They show up to appointments. They take their meds correctly. They say yes to rehab instead of why bother. And here's something hopeful and a little surprising. Even late in life, there are tools that can help rebuild that resilience. Simple physical activity, even as little as walking several thousand steps a couple of days a week, is tied to lower mortality in older adults. Gentle exercise, group classes, or even movement-based video games designed for seniors can help keep the brain and body engaged. Experiences like virtual reality nature environments have been tested with older adults and found to improve mood and engagement in some cases, especially for those who can't easily get outside. Are these magic fixes? No, but they're proof that even in the 80s and beyond, the story isn't frozen. Small sparks of joy, challenge, and connection can still relight that inner flame. Which brings us to the final question. If these are the 6 forces pulling people down after 81, what does it really mean to age well past that point? Final thoughts. Can we bend the curve after 81? When you put it all together, 81 starts to look less like a mysterious curse and more like a tipping point where many quiet forces finally line up at once. The loss of purpose as old roles fade and no new mission replaces them. The harsh impact of even small health scares on a body already living with frailty and multiple conditions. The heavy weight of loneliness and isolation, acting like an invisible disease of its own. The fog of medication overload, where too many pills push the body and brain off balance. The hidden stress of older caregivers who are giving away more energy than their bodies can safely spare. The gradual erosion of resilience, as repeated losses make it harder to keep fighting back. None of these are just random fate. They're shaped by choices, personal, family, and societal. They're influenced by how we design our homes, our healthcare, our communities, and our expectations around aging. The controversial question is this: do people decline after 81 because their bodies simply time out? Or because we've built a world where it's too easy for purpose, connection, and support to disappear just when they're needed most? The truth is probably both. Biology matters, but so does everything around it. For you, watching this, the takeaway isn't to fear 81. It's to see it as a warning label that says, from here on, every small decision counts more than you think. Encouraging an older loved one to take on a new, meaningful role, no matter how small, can literally protect their brain and lengthen their life. Helping them stay active, even with tiny walks or seated exercises, might be the difference between bouncing back from an illness and never fully recovering. Showing up, calling, visiting, and finding ways to keep them woven into real human connection can fight off one of the most dangerous risk factors of all: isolation. Asking a doctor or pharmacist for a medication review can turn a foggy, fragile day into a clearer, safer one. Recognizing and supporting older caregivers may give them the strength to stay healthy enough to keep caring and to enjoy their own remaining years. And gently encouraging hope, curiosity, and small adventures can help rebuild resilience, even after years of losses. If you remember one thing from this video, let it be this: after 81, survival isn't just about organs and numbers. It's about meaning, connection, and support. You are never too old to find a new purpose. Never too late to ask for company, to renegotiate your role, to question a medication list, or to say, I still want more from this life. And you're never too young to start treating the older people around you as if their final chapter still matters, because it does. If this opened your eyes or made you think of someone you love, take one small action today. Call them. Ask how they're really doing. Invite them into something that gives them a role, not just a chair in the corner. Those tiny choices, repeated over time, are how we bend the curve and help more people not just reach 81, but live fully, meaningfully, and proudly beyond it.